Hey, good morning, Year 8. How are you today? I'm going to be meeting some of you online in a little while, 10:15, but thought I'd have a quick chat to you. The work that's come up. Have you had a look at the work that Miss Ware has posted up for Year 8 work for week 4? Well, it'd be good to have a little bit of a look into it. You should have by now, especially during our online lesson. Take a look. I want to talk to you about one of the concepts that's in there. We're talking about materials, right? Chemical things, which, look around this little yard here. I'm here up at the school. All these things here, a lot of them natural, some of them man-made like that fence. All these things are made of atoms, right? They're materials. Now, what have you got a mix of materials together, right? A bunch of physical materials together, like, well, let's say this. Look at my beautiful little mess here. Do you see? I've got some soil and some bigger objects there. Now, what if I want to separate those two? In this week's work, we have a look at some separation techniques. Ways in which we can separate things that are joined together physically. So they're not chemically joined together. They're not tight connected like carbon dioxide, like the carbon and the oxygen. That's really tight together. That's a chemical bond. These are just physically mixed in together. How do you separate them? Well, depending on what the substances are and how they're joined, you use a different technique. And the scientists have developed over years many great techniques. Let's go back to my little mix of soil and sticks. Now, I could actually do a little hands-on separation technique right here in my hand, right? I've got soil and sticks. Now, if I want to separate them, I could do a little version of what we call sieving. Sieving is where you put a bunch of solids together in like a strainer and just, well, watch this, you shake. Now, look what I'm doing. I'm keeping my fingers just open a couple of millimeters and I'm shaking. Look what's coming out the bottom. Do you see what's happening down underneath my hands? All these tiny soil particles are disappearing and ta-da, look what I've got left. Just sticks. I've got this little pine cone and I've got a couple of sticks that I pulled out of the soil. Beautiful. So I actually used a sieve then. The sieve was this trusty hand of mine, it's all dirty now. And I separated tiny soil particles from bigger pine cones and sticks. That's a sieve, right? And how did I separate them? Have a think about that for a moment. Did you think about it? Is it in your head? I used the size of the particles, didn't I, as the criterion or the separating thing to divide one from the other. I used the size of the gaps in my fingers to separate the larger particles from the small particles, all in one go. That's called sieving. So sieving is actually very useful. But not all the things I want to separate are the same. I might want to separate some liquids, maybe liquids that are a little bit different from each other. Let's say some water and some oil, a liquid, and it's all mixed in, blobbing around together. Like when you pour oil in a cup of water, ever see it? All these big globules and they all intermix. Well, there's another technique to separate those different types of liquids based on their density, that is, how thick they are. In dense materials, mixed with lighter materials, less dense, like oil and water, well, interestingly, oil is less dense than water, did you know? So I've got a special technique called a separation funnel to separate those two. It looks like this. There we go, that's a separation funnel, the oil and the water. And notice that the water goes down below because it's more dense than the oil. Sorry, the oil is less dense, getting mixed up. Oil less dense, stays at the top, and the more dense thing pushes its way to the bottom. That's just one of the laws of the universe, right? Dense things sink. So I've got my funnel attached here, and all I do is the bottom stuff, which is close to the tip of the funnel, I just open up that little stopcock there and the water flows out and the oil just stays up above. I've got to let it flow, and just as the oil line gets to the tip of the funnel, I turn it off, and then I'm done. And of course, what would be at the bottom? Just water. And left up in the funnel is the greasy oil, right? Easy way to separate those two things. There's a whole bunch of other ones. Here's a couple of other ones. You're going to be looking at these during this week's work, week 4 work, and there's a little document for you to edit. It's on our Teams assignment. So all you got to do is go to the general channel on Teams, click over to the assignment tab, easy, and then you click on the document and hit edit. You can edit and write answers in there. Here's a couple of the other techniques that you'll be answering questions on. There's this one, filtration, right? A liquid with some solid particles suspended in it or floating. I put a filter paper there, and the filter paper, just like my hand, actually stops the bigger particles from getting through, and the liquid with the fine particles goes straight through the filter holes. Look at that. I've separated water down the bottom, that's called the filtrate, from the filtered material up the top, and it's stuck here up on top of the filter paper. Like straining tea leaves out of a cup of tea. What else? Here's another one. This one's more complicated. This is called distillation. Distillation is where I've actually got two liquids. They're fully mixed together, but guess what? One of the liquids boils off a bit quicker than the other liquids. For example, this is a good way to separate alcohol or ethanol from water when they're mixed together in a mixture. You can do this with port wine or other types of wine. And I heat over here on the left and things start to boil. I don't let the temperature get too crazy. Usually have a thermometer in that flask. And then I let everything heat up. And what starts evaporating first? The one with the low boiling point. So ethanol always boils earlier than water. Water boils out, 100 degrees C. Ethanol more like 73, 75 degrees. So I just keep it at about 73 and the ethanol boils up and it goes down these connected tubes down the middle. And you see that big beautiful like hot dog looking thing? That's got a cold water jacket running around it and it cools all that gas that's boiled off, because once it's evaporated, the ethanol is gaseous. But as it goes through this little angled tube down through the hot dog, it's cooling, and what do you know? The evaporated ethanol condenses, it changes state from gas down to liquid, and what do you know? I've got drips of distilled liquid on the right. Yeah, so the alcohol is down there at the bottom. Not too complicated, right? So when we get back into looking at the week work, and we'll talk about it in our live stream, remember, you're going to be answering about 14 or 15 questions, and there are 11 techniques. That's right, not 10, 11 different techniques for separating physical mixtures of compounds that you can learn about. And look, honestly, if you give it a go, it's quite interesting. Don't forget to get answers for all of these. We've also supplied you a document. It's in the team's assignment, and it's also on Miss Ware's science classroom. It's just called Week 4 Answers. So it's the teacher copy of answers, and the answers to the questions are there. So you use the answers book to research and think about it. Then you think of your own answers, way to put it. You click on the document, the work document called Work Week 4, and you just edit it in the team's assignment there, right? Edit it and type in your answers. Don't forget, don't freak out. You don't have to hit save. And when you leave that assignment, it will be automatically saved for you. So you can trust it. Your work will be nice and safe. And then when you finish for the week's stuff, you just get into that assignment page again and hit submit. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. And maybe you might want to think about around your home, what are some of the ways that just around your kitchen that you and your parents use different techniques to separate some materials that are mixed to make them more pure? What's a way you take impurities out of things using a simple technique at home? Think about cooking. Bye now.